Honestly, am I getting crazy? Please tell me I'm crazy. I promise I do not take nap breaks while watching Turner and Hooch. I pay close attention and try to soak up every scene in this awesome show. And I saw the original movie fairly recently. I wasn't aware that the original Scott Turner, this Scott Turner, is actually the father of Scott and Laura. This explains it all. Why Joss Peck's character is also a Scott who owns Hooch, and it explains why David Sutton is of course also in the show. Everything we have seen so far, I took it all as a kind of weird soft reboot. It didn't really make sense to me, but I haven't bothered so much because I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I actually feel a bit embarrassed and humiliated. Why wasn't this clear to me? Maybe you can point me in the right direction, but it finally clicked how this series is a sequel show. I want to keep being honest with you, always. So this is a confession I have to make. I only realized Tom Hanks' Scott Turner is the father of Scott and Laura right at the end when David is going through these files. And hey, if you're watching, comment down below what the big moment was in the past 6 episodes where I stupidly didn't pick up on it. Give me a roast, please, I can have it. Now with that thing out of the way, let's get into the episode. Hi fellow Disney Plus watchers, this is Thoughts After a Disney Plus Watch, where we review everything new Disney Plus coming out, and I'm glad you're watching. This is the channel that's specifically about movies, shows, and all that's Disney Plus original stuff. So just a fair warning here before we start, I do want to discuss spoilers to really do this episode justice, so you can press that watch later button if you haven't seen it yet. Still here, let's go for it. I really liked this episode. It was great. It starts out with Scott and his family preparing for a guacamole festival of some sorts, and Laura's son serves them this guacamole smoothie to taste, and this opening scene is something very personal for me because I really dislike the taste of avocado. So it was very relatable that they were all gagging and puking and just be disgusted. Okay, but the episode really picks up when the fugitive who didn't pay the rent, there's more to it, but that's the premise. This guy didn't pay the rent, he escapes and escapes into the woods, leaving booby traps and all sorts of distractions. And once again, this episode is more about the dynamics between the team members than the mission itself. Xavier is assigned to stay and guard the post all the time because of some personal beef between him and Big Dog T-Squad A-Team Trent. And I love that Xavier is always so confident that things will turn out in the end, that everything happens for a reason, and that whatever is on his path, he takes it like a champ. And his attitude pays off at the end, when it appears that Trent actually gets wrecked because he didn't trust Xavier. Oh, I missed a phone call, so what? No, not really, Trent. Xavier is now in the position where you can say to the chief that he contacted and informed the one in charge, that being Trent, which was actually an advantage in the end. It's an underdog outsmarting the leader, and that scene at the chief's office was a perfect ending for Xavier this week. Xavier and Scott are a great duo here. I love that they're essentially the typical buddy cop duo in a way, although a bit more sophisticated than in usual comedy shows. It's not like these two hate each other or anything and become good friends suddenly out of thin air. Scott is just mesmerized and constantly confused by Xavier's way of thinking, but it also teaches him stuff and helps him grow as a person. And you can feel the respect Scott secretly has for him, especially within this episode when Scott hears that Xavier has been doing all sorts of research somewhere up in a tree. You can tell he's impressed. I love that these two are actually becoming good friends. Not that they have a lot in common, but actually because of their differences. Trent was actually hilarious in this episode and sometimes even hard to watch because he's such an ignorant bastard. Scott! He screamed like a proud alpha, and Scott just standing there right in front of him. Dude, that cracked me up so badly. You remember that scene from Avengers Infinity War where all the heroes have surrounded Thanos and Star-Lord is about to punch him in the face, which will ruin the whole plan of them removing the gauntlet? Remember that? That feeling, which is a mix of embarrassment and just pure excitement. That is how I felt watching Trent about to give the order to shoot at the end of the episode. And the scene of Scott and the fugitive having a heart-to-heart about how Scott knows what it's like to love a dog and offering a place for him in the training facility, I really liked it, and I believe it was the best ending to a mission so far within this show, because most of the time the antagonists within these stories are pretty generic, but this was just a broken man trying to take care of his dog, and that resonates with Scott. Love it. Brooke was also a good character this episode, as I respect what they're doing with her. So she asks Scott out to this dance, and a big part of the episode is Scott trying to learn the waltz. And what I liked about this storyline is that Brooke is okay with the more clumsy side of Scott. What would have been such an easy path to take was for Brooke to be this spoiled elite girl who takes Scott to this fancy dance and has like the highest expectations and standards. No, instead Brooke also giggles a little bit in disbelief that she's actually taking Scott here to this ballroom with all these fancy people with fancy tuxedos and whatever. She wears the avocado shirt and she does it with pride. I like that we don't get this character that is so easily categorized into spoiled elite fancy girl that makes Scott realize that Erica is better for him. No, this way it will truly be hard to watch when he eventually breaks up with her to be with Erica, because that will happen, right? Hey, at the end of the day, I'm still a Scott and Erica shipper. Skerica? Erot? I'm going to go with Skarika. A little bit of a nitpick, but the little flash we see of Erica when Scott does the dip, you know, during the dance with Brooke, you know, it transitions to that like it's a scene right of CSI. I mean, this shot was really unnecessary. We can see what happens, what Scott is thinking. I mean, this guy can act, right? Let me see Scott's inner thoughts through the acting, not through this desaturated flashback shot. I really dug the scenes between Scott and Erica again. The scene where Erica points out, wow, you become such a dog person, and Scott reacting with, I don't know, I'm getting there, and the two just sharing that look. I mean, come on, such great subtext. The phrase I'm getting there, I immediately took that as a hint that Scott is going to get there in realizing he's supposed to be with Erica and not with Brooke. Also something to remember, it was a quick blink and you'll forget about it moment, but Jessica telling Scott about, you know, you're doing all these things Brooke likes, but Erica runs with you in the morning, right? Erica does these stuff with you, hinting at the fact that Scott is going after Brooke and just doing stuff she likes, but suggesting that Erica is someone who is genuinely interested in Scott. I think this will play into some stuff later on in the season where Brooke will drag Scott more and more into her life and things become more and more of a one-way street, if you know what I mean, making Scott realize that Erica is truly there for him. And man, the two have great chemistry. I was like nearly jumping up and down in my seat and laughing during the scene where Erica was teaching Scott to dance, and it wasn't for the fact that she just tripped over him and fell all the time. We know that one, but Scott asking, is there also a part of the waltz where it's like interpretive and him doing all these weird moves, or him doing the spin and Erica correcting him, no, you don't do the spin. Well, that doesn't seem fair. You know, this whole scene was heartwarming and hilarious at the same time. Overall, this episode was great. It develops the friendship between Scott and Xavier. It makes you both ship Scott and Erica, as well as Scott and Brooke. Trent is hilarious and very embarrassing to watch him being as overly confident as he is. It got the best and sweetest ending to a particular mission, because it's the first time we get a villain who isn't generic, but actually a damaged person. Really, really liked it. I'm thinking about wrapping this up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm curious, what did you think of this episode? Be sure to let me know in the comment section. Don't forget, if you enjoy the idea of discussing Disney Plus content with us, that red button looks familiar, right? And if you're interested in thoughts on previous episodes, it's all in the description, or you can browse the channel page. Did you like this video? Then be sure to consider giving that a click. Thanks. I'll be back with my thoughts on the third episode of What If somewhere today. For now, have a wonderful day and see ya.